Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Barbara Johnson, and I'm president of the Minneapolis City Council. Thank you so much. I want to first of all thank our musicians and singers who were our drum circle this morning. Thank you so much. Welcome to this important part of our city's history, the American Indian Center. We're so delighted to be your guests today. Thank you very much. And this is a not a regularly scheduled meeting, excuse me, it's an adjourned session of the Minneapolis City Council. So it's a formal city council meeting. And so the first thing that we do at a council meeting is call the roll. And so our city council clerk will call the roll and introduce our council members, and each of them will stand up so that you can identify them. Mr. Carl. Here. There are 12 members present. Well, we have a quorum of our city council present, and what a treat for me to be at our first new mayor's first State of the City message. It is with real pleasure that I introduce Mr. Daniel Yang, who is on her transition team that helped her get the mayor's office in place and helped her through that initial process. And so, Mr. Yang.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Daniel Yang, and I would like to announce my candidacy for mayor of Minneapolis in 2018. Sorry, wrong speech. Mayor Hodges, Council President Johnson, council members, Congressman Ellison, distinguished guests, friends, and relatives. Welcome to the Minneapolis American Indian Center in the heart of the American Indian Cultural Corridor. I'd like to thank the mayor for the honor of speaking at her first State of the City address, as well as the honor to serve on her Transition Advisory Committee earlier this year. If you've been happy with the mayor's work thus far, I'd like to say you're welcome, and take complete credit for all of it stemming from those earliest days in office working with the transition team. Now, to those in attendance who have any issues or concerns with the mayor's work, I would ask you to seek out her Chief of Staff, John Stiles. He's that handsome man with a beard sitting over there. In all seriousness, it's a deep honor and a reflection of the mayor's values that she selected the American Indian community to hold her first State of the City address. After many years of organizing in this community, I've learned that the hard truth is, more often than not, like in so many communities of color, we don't see those who ask for our votes again until 4 or 6 years later when the next election rolls around. It's been incredibly encouraging to see Mayor Hodges continuing to connect with our community, first participating in a community dialogue on racial equity held here in our community just days after her election, and now with her first State of the City address. I'd like to also welcome you all back to the American Indian Cultural Corridor. Come walk the Ave with your family and take in the beautiful public art throughout the corridor. Stop by Powwow Grounds Coffee for some traditional treats. Drop into All My Relations Gallery to view some of the finest contemporary American Indian art in the region. Or check out our incredible American Indian arts and crafts stores here. It's the perfect place to pick up something special for your spouse when you're in the doghouse. Gary Cunningham knows what I'm talking about. I also invite you to join us to celebrate Minnesota American Indian Month with our annual parade and celebration held on May 1st. We'll be gathering just right out here with a round dance and community feast. This is a historic day and a historic week for the Minneapolis American Indian community, not only because of today's State of the City address, but for the significant vote that the Minneapolis City Council will be undertaking tomorrow morning to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. In the past couple weeks, we've been flooded at NACTI with phone calls, emails, and visitors expressing their community members' gratitude and emotion around this historic moment. The city of Minneapolis has the opportunity to continue to show their leadership on racial equity by becoming the first city in the state of Minnesota to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. The common argument from those outside of this community is that there are more important issues for the city to dedicate their time to, that this isn't a big deal. And they're right, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if you never sat in a classroom as a child and been teased, taunted, or tormented about Columbus Day. It's not a big deal if you've never shed a tear reflecting about Indigenous relatives and ancestors who faced murder, torture, and rape that resulted from this man in this moment in history. And it's not a big deal if this issue isn't one that inflicts trauma and pain on those who you love most in the world. No, it's probably not a very big deal. But if you or someone you love has had to endure any one of those things, it's a pretty damn big deal. If it's important for the city of Minneapolis to have all of its residents feel respected, dignified, and valued, this is an important step in working towards healing the pain and hurt that is associated with this day and the Indigenous people who call this region home. For more than 4 decades, countless community members, activists, groups, and organizations have fought in this community and Indigenous communities all across the world among this issue and other Indigenous rights issues. A leader in that struggle is my uncle, Lekshi Bill Means. Bill is the co-founder of the International Indian Treaty Council, a longtime leader in the American Indian movement, and on numerous community boards. He has literally put his life on the line time after time to protect Indigenous peoples and communities across the world. As a young boy, I looked up to him, seeing him in the newspapers and reading about his activism. Now, as a young man, I've had the honor to work side by side with Bill and be humbled by his mentorship. Please welcome Bill Means.
I like to give you that traditional greeting in one of the classical languages of the Western Hemisphere, known as Lakota. What I said was, today is a good day. Hello, my relatives. The hearts of our people are strong, and we extend our hand in friendship. This is a very historic day for our people. And we want to welcome each and every one of you, especially on behalf of our director here at the American Indian Center, Mary Lagarde. I'd like to recognize her at this time. She has to walk in the moccasins of another great leader who preceded her, Ms. Frances Fairbanks. Before I go further, we have to recognize that there's a few other chiefs here. We have the Chief of Police, Ms. Harta. I serve on her advisory board, and also the Chief of the Fire Department, Mr. Mitchell. We thank you. This relationship started many years ago in 1805 with the treaty between Dakota people and a man by the name of Zebulon Pike, who you may recall is related to Pike's Peak. It was there they sat down with the idea of creating a place where people could come together. Later became known as City of Minneapolis. And from that treaty, we began the circle of life, as we call it, in our ways. And we each kind of went in separate directions. We as Indian people trying to preserve our land, our way of life, and the non-Indian beginning to build this industrial complex known as the city of Minneapolis. We went through some dark days, like down in 1862, in which the largest mass hanging in the history of the United States took place right here in Mankato, Minnesota. Let us not forget the sacrifice of those great leaders for standing up for their way of life so that we could be here today. And then as we went further, we began to come together, this great coalition of neighborhoods, of ethnic groups, coming together to elect a woman to lead us here in the city of Minneapolis. This is a historic day because it is a recognition of the contributions of Indian people to this great city, starting with the basic ingredient, the land, but also a way of life of recognition of all the four colors of humankind, the red, the black, the white, and the yellow, who come together here every day in the city of Minneapolis. If you mix those colors together, you get the color of Mother Earth. And so we feel great that today begins a continuation of the reconciliation of Indian people, the recognition of the contributions that Indian people have made to this great city, the recognition of our rights and our responsibilities in our communities. And so when you walk anywhere in the streets, in the parks, in the back alleys of the city of Minneapolis, you are kicking up the dust of the ancestors of the great Dakota, Ojibwe, and Ho-Chunk nations. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce our dynamic, our great up-and-coming Ms. Betsy Hodges, Mayor of Minneapolis.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask here, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm going to untape this and retape this closer to where I talk. That's a really great way to start. But I do want to start. Can you hear me better now? Great. I do want to start by thanking Daniel and Bill for those introductions and those very kind words. It's a very humbling welcome, it's a warm welcome, and it means a great deal to me. I also want to thank you, Madam President, and I want to thank you, council members, for convening this meeting for this purpose. It means a lot to me that we are here today for this purpose. I would also like to say the physical nourishment here has been provided by Wade House, and the spiritual nourishment by the amazing drummers Ringing Shield. Can we have rounds of applause for them? I am grateful to be surrounded here by friends, by colleagues, peers, and family. Thank you to the members of the Park Board. I see Superintendent Jane Miller here is here with President Liz Walensky, pardon me. Thank you very much for being here. And from folks from the Met Council who are here as well. And Congressman Ellison, I want to thank you in particular for being here. It means a lot to me that you have chosen to spend your time here today. I also want to thank Gary Cunningham, who is here today in a dual role. He is both my Met Council member and my husband. Thank you for being here. And I want to say hello to my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad. I think if you had told them when I was a moody teenager obsessed with Duran Duran, Or when I was a radical college student who knew everything and what was wrong with it, they would be very surprised to have learned that someday I would be giving a Minneapolis State of the City address. But here we are. Here we are. And I look around this space in particular, and I see not just a place, I see a center of a community that is one of the many great things about the city of Minneapolis. I think of the history and I think of the community here as well. Since 1974, the Minneapolis American Indian Center has had a rich history as one of the first urban American Indian centers in the country. First, under the longtime leadership of Executive Director Frances Fairbanks, and then, she was a pioneer in the area of community leadership, by the way, and now under the great leadership of Mary Lagarde. Thank you, Mary, for hosting us here today. I really appreciate that. And can we thank the American Indian Center? And as Daniel mentioned, we are in the heart of the Native American cultural corridor that is defined in the blueprint, a community-driven vision for this neighborhood and for the Native community in Minneapolis. The city partners with the community through our Memorandum of Understanding, and I am committed to partnering myself to making the blueprint into reality. And one of the leaders of that blueprint, former City Council member Robert Lilligren, is here with us today. Thank you. And two ways that our partnership culminates is first, through the celebration of American Indian Month, which starts a week from today on May 1st. And second, it's especially important that we are here today on the eve of an historic vote, a vote that will, at long last, recognize the history, culture, and resiliency of the people who originally inhabited our country and our city. Tomorrow, the City Council will vote on a resolution to begin recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day on the day that, until now, we have recognized as Columbus Day. This act will recognize and celebrate the Native people who still live on this land and will foster stronger relationships moving forward. I am grateful to the community for organizing to make this a reality, and I very much look forward to signing it when it comes forward, as I promised this past summer that I would do. And that kind of vision, the vision that the American Indian community has put forward for itself and for our city, shows that together we are stronger, and that especially includes growth. My vision for growth for the city of Minneapolis is another 107,000 people in our city. And this means that the people and the businesses that support them and give them jobs, the transit to get them to their houses and to their jobs, and get around the city without a car. And my vision for growth is that its fruits are grown and shared by all. People of color and white people, low income and high income, north, south, east, and west. It is great to work with two champions of growth, Zoning and Planning Committee Chair Lisa Bender and Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee Chair Lisa Goodman. Thank you all for championing that growth. And the secret, which I'm going to let out of the bag today, is that this growth cannot happen unless all the fruits are grown and shared by all. The first step is for all of us together to share the goal, and that's where we begin today. When we eliminate our disparities, we will both ignite and propel our prosperity. Individually, yes, of course, but far beyond individual success, eliminating disparities will bring prosperity to the region, not just among people who are newly participating, but among all of us, by increasing a customer base, increasing a solid workforce that draws new business investment, increasing the productivity of the city and the whole region, and yes, by increasing our tax base. Data back this up. The International Monetary Fund shows that in countries who have reduced their inequalities by 10%, just 10%, they increased their growth spell by 50%. They had 50% longer to bring in new business and new development. They had 50% longer with an opening to reduce inequality even more. They had 50% longer to build on that success in an upward spiral of growth. I want no less for Minneapolis. I want no less for the people of Minneapolis. I want this kind of growth for us because there is something in it for all of us. A Met Council study shows that we will be a majority-minority region by 2040 and much sooner in the city of Minneapolis. It also shows that if Minneapolis-St. Paul were to eliminate our disparities, we could have 274,000 fewer people in poverty, 171,000 more high school diplomas, 124,000 more people with jobs. And in terms of economic growth, we would pick up $31.8 billion of personal income that we are otherwise leaving on the table. $31.8 billion. So this is where we begin. This is the key that will unlock the door of our growth as a city. Growth that includes us all will propel us further than doing what we've always done. Because doing what we've always done will get us what we have always gotten. And what we have gotten is growth that is thwarted by the biggest disparities in the country between white people and people of color. What we have always gotten will culminate in $32 billion lost in personal income. And while we are a great city, we are not a great city for everyone. And that truth limits how far we can go. Okay, it doesn't just limit it. Over the next 3 decades, it will actively erode the gains we have made that we are so rightfully proud of. In other words, and prepare yourselves for a metaphor. In other words, if we bench our entire infield, there is no way we are going to win this game. Some of us are still playing. We have a pitcher, maybe, an outfield, some people who can hit, and we can cobble together some kind of team. But there is no way that we are going to go to the playoffs, let alone win the World Series, if we don't have everyone playing on the team. If we are keeping our players on the bench, if game after game after game we have fewer and fewer people playing on the team, eventually we're not even going to be able to play a game. So I start with that premise. I want to add to our understanding that increasing equity is the just thing to do, and it is the just thing to do. And were that the only reason to do it, it would be enough. But I want to start with the premise that all of us have a stake in ensuring that all of us in the community, white people and people of color, high income, low income, everyone in the community is in a position to both contribute to and benefit from our growth and increased prosperity. Universally we benefit when universally we participate. And more telling, universally we lose out when even some of us do not participate. That's what animates my work as mayor. That is the premise with which I start every day at work and end every night at work. We get to grow Minneapolis. We get to do it all together. We get to truly become one Minneapolis, all of us, by necessity, contributing to that growth and prosperity, and all of us, by necessity, sharing in that growth and prosperity. So when you walk into my office, you will notice a few things. There's a new coat of paint on the walls. I really do have a thing for Wonder Woman. She's on the walls as well, and she's on the bookcase, and she's on my coffee mug. And you'll see that there's an amazing team of people working every day on the city's priorities, led by my Chief of Staff, John Stiles. And you will see the whiteboard, capital T, capital W. It's new. It replaces one that was in that office that was so well used and so well loved by the previous administration that when I started, I could still see faint, inerasable marks, traces of the plans being made and executed up to the very last moment of the last administration. And now, with me, there is a new clean board that has already seen its share of plans written on it. For that matter, this speech was written and rewritten and mapped out and designed on that whiteboard. But there is one key element of that whiteboard in my office that has not and will not change. At the top of it, I have written 3 key questions. Everything I do, every policy decision that's in front of me, every appointment I make, every initiative we propose passes through the filter of those 3 questions. The accumulation of the answers to those three questions will not only define my mayoralty, they will define the course of our city long into the future. They are the questions that, if we answer them well and let them guide what we do, will help create the best possible next version of Minneapolis. So I keep them up there every day. I panic if someone tries to erase them. The questions are, 1, how will this make the city run well? 2, how will this move the dial on equity? 3, how will this move the dial on growing the city? And the truth of the matter is, these three questions are inextricably linked. If we do not run the city well, it is not possible to meet any of our other goals that we have for ourselves as a people and ourselves as a city. And if not, if every part of the city is not getting this level of service that they need, we are neither equitable nor running the city well. Equity relies on creating opportunities for people to thrive, and that takes growth. For us to be one Minneapolis, we need to know and act like these questions are all connected. So, what does it mean to run the city well? It might seem obvious, but sometimes city services are so embedded in our lives that we don't truly acknowledge what our tax dollars are buying on the most basic of levels. Clean water comes out of our taps from one of the best filtration systems in the country, and we don't give it a second thought. We step into a restaurant and get good food, and we don't consider the licensing work and inspections that make sure that the business is operating safely. Our garbage and recycling gets hauled on Monday or on Tuesday or on Wednesday, and we don't pause to connect it with our own investment in the community. But that's what taxes are, your investment in the community. Thank you very much for paying them. Most important in running the city well is making sure we're getting the basic services you should expect to receive. You should be getting them. Groundbreaking work with innovative ideas is not enough if we aren't taking care of the basics: potholes, streetlights, inspections, sewers. So we do take care of them. I was proud to work with the City Council to fund an additional $1 million in pothole repairs this year. Thanks to the help and leadership of Steve Cockey for making that happen at our Public Works Department. We cannot control the conditions that lead to a worse than normal year for potholes. That would take a significant charter change. But we can control how we take care of those potholes. And I'm proud to say that our public works crews have been doubling their efforts to keep our city moving and to keep those potholes filled. And thank you very much to the employees of the City of Minneapolis. City workers, our public servants, provide basic services like these across our entire enterprise day after day with little fanfare but great professionalism. We all owe them a great debt of thanks. At the inaugural party in January, I took my precious moment on stage to do something I figured I would never again in my entire life have an opportunity to do. I asked everybody in the room, and it was a very full room, to cheer for structurally balanced budgets and pension reform. Those are some of the sweetest cheers I have ever heard in my entire life. Because when you do it, it's so important. But fiscal responsibility is not sexy. It does not generate frothy media stories, but it matters every day to what we can do as a community. Getting it right is no small feat, but running the city well depends on getting it right. So I assure you that the budget I present to the Council this August will be structurally balanced, it will be based on our priorities, and it will take the next first financial steps toward our shared future together. Thank you. See, another round of applause for structurally balanced budgets. I could get used to that. Running the city well also means knowing that city operations are secure. Councilmember Lene Palmisano is leading the charge to make sure that the city's audit function, newly reimagined in 2010, is configured moving forward to ensure that our dollars are secure and our city functions properly. I pledge to continue my dedication to that work as I support her leadership there. A city that runs well also pays heed to its place in the world. Climate change is real, it is happening now, and we will continue to feel its impact on our city. So running the city well means planning well for our energy future. Our energy future includes the Climate Action Plan to reduce citywide greenhouse gas emissions. Our energy future includes coming to strong city franchise agreements with Xcel Energy and CenterPoint Energy. Our city future includes Senator Al Franken's Back to Work Minnesota initiative, which creates jobs by retrofitting buildings to make them more energy efficient, using local jobs and local manufacturers. I've been proud to partner with Senator Franken here. I support his work, and I welcome Catherine Blauvelt, who is here today from Senator Franken's office, who is the point person on that work. Thanks for being here, Catherine. Our energy future also includes moving toward zero waste Minneapolis. We are already making progress on that, as curbside organics recycling will soon be available to all residents. I look forward to working with city and county partners to build on the success we have seen with one-sort recycling as we implement citywide composting. But there is no bigger marker of how well we are running the city than by how well we are providing the most basic of municipal services, public safety. This year, we have seen the amazing work of the Minneapolis Fire Department and the Minneapolis firefighters. And this year, tragically, we have seen too much of the amazing work of the Minneapolis Fire Department and Minneapolis firefighters. Councilmember Warsame and I saw that firsthand before we even started, before we were even sworn in. Chief John Friedel and his team are now working to make sure we have that kind of firefighter talent long into the future. With their Day One recruitment program, they are going into the high schools to talk with and give hands-on experience to sophomores about what it could mean to choose a firefighting career. Our Regulatory Services Department, led by Nuria Rivera Vandermeide, makes sure that our buildings are up to code inside and out, that our animals are safe for people and from people, and that our neighborhoods look like the safe places that they are. 911 operators and dispatchers, under the leadership of Heather Hunt, provide a vital link between people in distress and the response they need. 911 operators and dispatchers answer more than 500,000 calls a year, and last month, at 5.6 seconds for an average answer time, we are at our best response times in years. Minneapolis is a safe city. And we are a safe city in no small measure because of the great work of our Minneapolis Police Department with Chief Janae Harteau at the helm. They continue their strong work to make Minneapolis as safe as it's been in a generation, with violent crime at rates last seen 3 decades ago. To enhance that work, residents need to see police officers who reflect them and their community. In the next year, close to 100 new hires will come on board, and as we hire, we are making every effort to make sure our force will look more and more like the city it serves. As a result, I believe levels of community trust and the connections with the community will be stronger than ever before. I must say, though, that our officers will only reflect the community they protect and serve if we recruit and if you apply. If you apply to be a police officer or a community service officer, if you encourage the people around you to apply to be a Minneapolis police officer or a Minneapolis community service officer, please consider this my personal request to women and men from everywhere in the community to apply to be a Minneapolis police officer. While crime remains at historically low levels, we know it's not evenly distributed. I want to thank Council President Barb Johnson for co-chairing a public safety summit on Northside crime and livability concern, and for her years-long advocacy for North Minneapolis and for the safety of our neighborhoods. We walked out of that summit with specific recommendations and commitments from law enforcement, neighborhoods, the courts, the state, and the city for improving safety in North Minneapolis. Running the city well, taking care of basics and keeping it safe must run through everything we do. And we get to do more. We get to move the dial on equity. And they gave me some water. I made the point earlier that in the 21st century, true growth and equity are intertwined. The greatest opportunity we have to create equity is with our kids. They are where we must begin. Recent research by University of Minnesota professor Aaron Sojourner demonstrates clearly not just that disparities aren't inevitable, but they are preventable. When you add this work to Minnesota economist Art Rolnick's years-long research on and advocacy for effective early childhood investments, you have a powerful call to action that Minneapolis can and must heed. My Cradle to K initiative will help transform how we think of early childhood interventions. I am proud to announce that Peggy Flanagan, Executive Director of the Children's Defense Fund of Minnesota, and Carolyn Smallwood, Executive Director of Way to Grow, will be the co-chairs of my newly forming Cradle to K cabinet. I am grateful for their willingness to serve. Their charge will be to help coordinate and align work to increase the early experiences of all children, prenatal to 3 years old, and to help create a plan to create bridges across silos and sectors so we can maximize a child's ability to be ready for early childhood education opportunities. It will build on the great Healthy Starts work happening in the health department under Gretchen Musicant, and it is the place where the city itself can have the most direct impact on educational outcomes. I am eager to take our work to the next stage. And although in Minneapolis the city does not directly control our schools, I, like mayors across the country, know that the success of our city is tied to the success of our public schools. In Minneapolis, a city where 70% of public school students are young people of color, we will never grow in the way that we need to until we eliminate racial disparities in educational outcomes. And no mayor in America understood this sooner. No mayor in America got involved more effectively with public education in his city than St. Paul Mayor Chris Coleman. He is a model for me as a mayor and as a friend. His Chief of Staff, Aaron Dady, is here, and if you'd be willing to convey that message to the mayor, I would appreciate it. I'm especially pleased about the contract just ratified between Minneapolis Public Schools, led by Superintendent Bernadia Johnson, and the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers under the leadership of their president, Lynn Norgren. By creating flexible community partnership schools, and by lowering class sizes in high-priority schools, this contract is a strong step forward in empowering teachers and communities to end our gaps. The city's youth cabinet is another place we help focus and coordinate our work for young people. The youth cabinet is a collective of city staff established to both use an equity lens and a youth lens to support young people and identify opportunities to do the work more effectively in the city. Councilmember John Quincy has been instrumental in moving that work forward, and with his leadership, we will be able to do even more. This work joins our strong, ongoing, multi-sector work with the Youth Coordinating Board and with our Blueprint for Action to prevent youth violence. Creating equity for our children, equity that starts before birth and continues through a lifetime, is where we must start, but it is not enough. We must also focus on ending disparities in jobs, wealth creation, and housing, among many other areas. And that's what the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development is doing. The work of the department, whether in workforce, economic development, housing, inspections, or planning, is structured around the triple bottom line: growing the city, promoting sustainability, and ending disparities. So, for example, the Renew program trains people who previously have been hard to employ in green manufacturing and construction techniques. Often these folks are from communities of color, and it helps them land good-paying jobs in fast-growing businesses. The Business Technical Assistant program trains new and existing entrepreneurs, predominantly from communities of color and immigrant communities, in starting new businesses or expanding existing ones. This grows jobs and builds wealth that ripples throughout our entire city. And I know that Councilmember Cano is as keenly interested as I am in nurturing entrepreneurship and small business in our city. On city-owned lots in North Minneapolis, Green Homes North builds sustainable, owner-occupied homes with newly trained local labor who use locally sourced green building materials and then sells the homes to people with lower incomes. This improves the neighbor's property value and adds to the entire city's tax base. So it would take all day for me to tell you about all the great work that the city and our partners are doing to build equity, and it may feel like it already has. But I won't take that much longer on it, but there are a couple more things that I do want to highlight. Important initiatives. First, at the city, we have made progress via our Equity Assessment Toolkit for hiring, procurement, community engagement, and policy-making decisions inside the city. Velma Corbell's leadership at the Department of Civil Rights has propelled us forward and will help us take this work to the next level. Thank you very much, Director Corbell. In partnership with the schools, the county, and the parks, we work to unite our city around one Minneapolis, one read. By reading and thinking together about race, family relationships, and neighborhood history. This partnership bears great fruit in relationship building, promoting literacy, and reconnecting our community across racial divides. Without the leadership of Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden, it would never happen. And I am proud to announce, yes, let's give a round of applause. I am proud to announce that this year I will be partnering with her and all of our other partners to continue the success of One Minneapolis, One Read. Finally, for all of the work we're doing together, Minneapolis is blessed to have a true champion in the White House, President Barack Obama. Last month, he announced the My Brother's Keeper initiative to create and expand opportunity for boys and young men of color. I have been in contact with the White House about how Minneapolis can share the good work we're doing here with the rest of the country and how we can partner with the White House to do even more. So, we must continue to run the city well. We must move the dial on equity. But as I mentioned earlier, equity relies on creating opportunities for people to thrive. So we also must move the dial on growth. And we are a thriving, growing city. My goal remains to make us the great city of the 21st century. And we are on our way. In 2013, between increasing market values and new construction, the tax base of Minneapolis increased to close to $3 billion. From the first quarter of 2012 to the first quarter of 2013, the city of Minneapolis added more than 8,000 jobs, an increase of 2.7%. In 2013, the city issued $1.2 billion in construction permits. This year, we're on track to exceed that number. I plan to keep our fabulous city assessor, Patrick Todd, very, very busy. What is the key to our success? The key is our public investment in the public good. It is making us a city people want to come to and choose to invest in. We have parks surrounding lakes and rivers and creeks. We are bikeable, we are walkable, and we are getting more so every year. We have libraries, city services, and public spaces that enrich our lives and support small businesses and strong neighborhoods. We have planned well for our development future. And in Minneapolis, we view transit investment as an effective and essential tool for sustainable development, a tool to grow jobs, to grow housing, and economic development in Minneapolis and along revitalized urban corridors. In our vision of Minneapolis, transit improvements, bike and pedestrian improvements, green space, and economic development are seamlessly and sustainably interwoven. You need look no further than the Central Corridor LRT line that opens in June to see the impact public investment in rail can have. It has already spurred almost $2 billion in investment, and it doesn't open until June 14th. Imagine what our city will look like when we replicate this on all of our transit corridors. When those corridors meet their full potential, the whole region wins. These wins take investment, however, which is why we also need to pass a 3/4-cent metro-wide sales tax as proposed by Move Minnesota and unanimously endorsed by our city council. Make no mistake, Minneapolis knows what it wants. We have a plan, and we have leadership who can make it happen. Leadership like Councilmember Kevin Reich, new at the helm of our Transportation and Public Works Committee, and already building on his years of work to make our system grow and our system run smoothly. Minneapolis, right now, we are at the beginning of some of the biggest developments in downtown in a generation. Talk about growth. The reinvented Nicollet Mall will be another shining jewel in the crown for our state, our region, and our city. Our shared vision for the new mall is a 21st century destination, drawing visitors and residents alike to its curving grandeur and its series of unique moments along the way. It is one of the many ways we are integrating our gorgeous river with our bustling, growing downtown. This is much more than just a street project. It's a regional amenity of critical importance to our partners in Minnesota's business community, an investment so important to their success that they have stepped up to the plate with the commitment to fund half the project themselves. We are grateful for the strong leadership of Steve Kramer and his board at the Downtown Council. Thank you very much. We are grateful for the dogged leadership in the delegation of Representative Ray Dean and Senator Carrie Dietzich and the bill's author in the Senate, Bobby Joe Champion. And we are grateful for the steadfast support of Governor Dayton and our united legislative delegation. Thank them all very much for their support of this crucial project. But our growth is more than just downtown by far. Our neighborhoods are the bedrock of Minneapolis, and new developments in neighborhoods all across the city are bringing more people, more business, and more tax base to the city. In the north, we have West Broadway Crescent and Washburn Center for Children. In south, we have High Lake Triangle. Here in central, we have the new Longfellow Market. In the southwest, we have Mosaic East. In northeast, we have Art Spaces Jackson Flats. Many of our biggest development opportunities also lie outside of downtown. Prospect North, a vision for new development and growth on the new Green Line. Upper Harbor Terminal, an opportunity to connect North Minneapolis with the river, new green space, new jobs, and new development. And of course, Kmart, an opportunity to reconfigure that store's presence on Lake and Nicollet so that a future modern streetcar can go through. We are growing, Minneapolis. We are thriving. The key is knowing what will take us to the next level. To realize the promise of growth, sustainable growth, growth of people, not cars, inclusive growth, we as a city have to do everything we can to make sure we are fostering rather than thwarting investment. That is why I have already asked our City Attorney, Susan Siegel, a strategic, forward-thinking leader, to review all city regulations that govern business in the city. Over the years, we have applause for that, perhaps from small business owners in the audience. Over the years, we have made ordinance additions and changes, each one designed to protect the public or to solve a particular problem. But over the decades, though, that culmination of solutions has become so cumbersome that it makes it harder for people to invest here. And if it's hard for a wizened investor who's done a score of projects, if it's hard for that person to navigate our system, then for a first-time business owner, perhaps with another language as her first language, the barriers might be more than she can afford to break through. So we get to streamline our regulations while still making sure the public interest is protected. The project will take time, but the payoff will be great. And we do have economic sectors ripe for concentrated growth. Energy, health, high tech, our local food economy. Taking good economic sectors and making them great is a cornerstone of good economic development. Our arts economy, for example, is a showcase for our city and a lauded cornerstone of our livability. It is also, however, an important part of our economy. What the arts do to create a place people want to be in cannot be overestimated. But it is also an economic driver in and of itself. The Minneapolis Creative Index, which measures the value of our creative sector, shows that it pumps $700 million into our city's economy in a single year. That outpaces the national average by nearly 5 times, and it stayed steady through our tough times. This is an economic sector that, when we grow it, will make us a more attractive place to live, but also increase our bottom line as a city. That is a double bottom line. It makes us livable, and it makes us grow. If we can elevate people's knowledge of what we offer, we can grow our arts sector further. That is a great double bottom line. But as I said in the beginning, our growth needs to be inclusive growth. A while back, a couple of 3 weeks ago, I think it was, I met with a group of Somali business owners, mostly women, to talk about the investment they are making in our city. Many of them own the equivalent of a market stall in one of the malls in South Minneapolis, Carmel Mall, 24 Mall. Many of our regulations and small business support programs are not designed for micro enterprises like theirs. As a result, the assistance these women need and could benefit from is falling through the cracks. So now, as a city, we are looking at how to adjust our programs to accommodate new realities. This is what I mean by inclusive growth, making sure our policies and programs are set up in such a way that all can participate. We need to make certain our business assistance programs are flexible enough to meet the needs of today. So I am proud to announce that to spearhead this work in my office on economic development and growth, Eric Garcia Luna will be joining my office as a new policy aide to work on economic development. And I give great thanks to U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar for being so kind as to let me hire Eric away from her office and the great work that he's been doing there. Welcome, Eric. So those are the 3 questions. How does this help make the city run well? How does this move the dial on equity? And how does this move the dial on growth? When we are inspired by these 3 questions, when we move the dial on running the city well, increasing equity, and growing inclusively, our one Minneapolis will be the great city of the 21st century. And so I come back to where I began. We are an amazing city. Now, I have just spent a fair amount of time bragging about our amazing city, about how fabulous it is and how fabulous we are as a people. And a few years ago, site selectors came to our region to see what would propel us forward and what was holding us back. Those are the folks who work with new or expanding businesses or businesses looking to move, helping them decide where they should go. They know a little something about what draws people to a place. They know a little something about what attracts business and development. And they found that we as a region have very much to offer. We are boxing above our weight in Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. We top all kinds of lists for livability, and when people come here for work or school, they don't want to leave. The problem? Nobody knows. We are, as I have said before, militantly modest. We could discover cures for 17 kinds of cancer and we would say nothing. And if someone else noticed, we would say, yeah, well, thanks, anybody could have done it. And then we would change the subject to the weather. This happens across the board. All of us in Minneapolis are impeded in one way or another by the modesty Minneapolis has been steeped in. But if we're going to grow, if we are going to bring opportunity here, we cannot afford to be modest. We cannot afford to hide our lights under those bushels, and we sure can't settle for merely being less modest. We have got to brag, people, actively, loudly, with more vigor than we know we have. We must shout to the rooftops that Minneapolis is the best place on earth. Who's with me? Come on, practice. Practice, you've got it in you. Cheer for yourselves. You know you can. Are you starting to feel uncomfortable yet? Good, because to get where we're going, we're all going to have to get really uncomfortable. That's why I will be initiating a week where we can all practice together bragging about the city of Minneapolis. I call it the best week of bragging about Minneapolis ever. And it will be from July 14th to July 20th, and you are all invited to participate. What does Bragging Week look like, you might ask yourself? We will showcase the best of our city, and we will ask you to practice doing the same. We'll have lists extolling our virtues and ask you to practice bragging with your neighbors, with your friends, and better yet, everyone you know who doesn't live here. We will have social media suggestions, tweets about our best of victories, Facebook posts about how great our neighborhoods are. The fun has just begun, so stay tuned. And really, is it bragging if it's true? We are an amazing place of amazing people, and we have much to brag about as soon as we learn how through at least 1 week of practice. The key to our future and our growth rests on bragging. The key to our future rests on the cities continuing to make the basic improvements and innovative changes needed to support even more growth and development. And most of all, as I said in the beginning, the key to our future rests on making sure that everyone has what they need to take advantage of all that we have to offer. Our common future rests on it. We are one Minneapolis, my friends. Acting like it will get us everywhere we choose to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hodges. I apologize to anybody who saw me looking at my phone. My directions are on my phone, so that's why I'm doing that. I just really want to thank the mayor for her message, and again, thank the Native American community for their hospitality today. And after we adjourn, there are some refreshments on the other side of the center there, so please join us for that. And so with that, a motion to receive and file the mayor's address would be in order. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries, and a motion to adjourn is in order. Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Good speech.